society.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Relebogile Mabotja
Live, streaming countrywide
on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
Minutes after 1 o'clock. Welcome to 7:02 Afternoons with me, Relebogile Mabotja, on this Monday, the 26th of January. Yes, I know how I sound. I know I'm going to start getting the messages. I am recovering from being unwell, and my voice fortunately made a reappearance this morning. I had to be quiet for about 34 hours straight, but I'm looking forward to being in all of your company today. So coming up on the show, I want to find out from you on the back of an article that came out on News 24 around some of the dropout rates, particularly when it comes to high school students. So we want to find out from all of you, did you ever drop out of school? Maybe it was by choice or not by choice. What were the circumstances? How did it alter your life? And when you look back, how do you feel about it? Is it something you would change or not? Because there are many people, I get DMs often of people saying, if I don't come up with this amount of money, I'm going to have to drop out. And it's without them choosing to do so. So I want to hear from you on that one. Then in movies and what to stream, we'll be chatting to Lelo Mzata, who recently launched a book, an award-winning journalist, broadcaster, and author called Action, a celebration of African cinema. So we're doing something a little bit different today, but he's written a book about some top SA films, and we thought, why not have him on the show? Our travel feature, Igor Mutilska, will join us, national tourist guide and founder of eagerjourneys.com, and we will get into a conversation with her as well on the show in our travel feature. And parenting and parents, we're going to be talking about reconnecting with your parents and loved ones after a break in communication. So let's imagine a scenario where maybe you cut your parents off as adult children, or they cut you off, and now we're trying to find a way to get you reunited. What does that look like, reconnecting with parents that you got cut off from? Palisa Khadebe, clinical psychologist, will join us for that. And then the Naked Scientist, we take all of your science-related questions with Dr. Chris Smith. So get in touch with us, 011 883 0702, SMS us 31702, tweet at Relebogile M, at Radio 702, using the hashtag 702 Afternoons, and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702.
702 Afternoons
with Relebogile Mabotja
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
Let's talk about dropping out of school, dropping out of one's education. And I know many don't speak about dropout rates when it comes to primary school kids, because that seems like something that definitely should not be happening, but we know it is more common with high school kids. So if you head over to News 24, an article was published that argued that less than half of the people doing grade 10 in 2023 made it to matric in the past year, right? So let me repeat that. Less than half of the people doing grade 10 in 2023 made it to matric in the past year. And these are the figures that they saw, where you had 1,187,468 grade 10s that were in 2023, with only 778,793 that were included and went and participated in matric. So we really have to find out from each and every one of you, because there are different circumstances as to why it is that young people will drop out of school. We have, over the past couple of months and weeks, had various conversations that probably could touch on this. So I don't know if you recall, we had a conversation around, children that take their own lives when they don't do well at school. And part of that conversation that we touched on was some of the pressure that young people face at home. I shared the story of a young lady who spoke of the fact that when she wanted to go to varsity straight after finishing her matric, she was told by her family, no, you will do no such thing. Firstly, we don't have the money to support you, but secondly, you need to go get a job and support us. So I definitely think that that is a consideration of a reason why it is that somebody would be dropping out of high school. There are others who drop out of high school because they start working early and choose to not complete. And yes, please also feel free if to share with us if you dropped out of your tertiary education, because I really want to get an understanding of what the outcome has been for your life. And if you look back and think, I wish I had gone back to finish my studies, or I wish I had gone back for whatever the case. I think it was Nomzamo Mbata that I interviewed on the upside of failure and how gutted she was that she did not get her degree at the time, but went back later. And maybe the term dropout sounds so negative that we don't actually like to use that term. Maybe that is the negative part, is that we're using the term dropout. So I want to hear from you. 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702.
Your brain's a well-oiled machine. Now put it to work in the brain of 702. Enter on primemediaplus.com. T's and C's apply.
Applications at UNISA's Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs, the TM School, are now open. Apply for the Master of Arts in Public Policy and International Affairs, the Doctor of Philosophy in Public Policy and International Affairs, or one of UNISA's 17 short learning programs. The Thabo Mbeki School, training leaders who solve complex problems in Africa and beyond. For more information, send an email to tm-school@unisa.ac.za. That's tm-school@unisa.ac.za. UNISA, define tomorrow.
Life keeps getting busier. Parenting, shopping, working, exercising, just surviving. With all of that, who has time for anything else? That's why Netcare introduces Netcare Appointmed. Just tell us what you need, a specialist, GP or dentist, and we'll search our nationwide network of 5,000 doctors and find an appointment with a doctor who best suits your needs and medical aid. That's Netcare Appointmed on the Netcare app.
Supercharge your business productivity with Moloi Innovative Solutions. We bring the most highly customized and cost-effective IT infrastructure to your fingertips. Whether it's desktop and server support, cloud services or hardware, software and printer procurement, our dynamic team makes sure that you have the tech that resonates with you. Moloi Innovative Solutions. Experience at its best. Get to molois.co.za for more.
702 afternoons.
With Relebogile Mabotja
Lines are always open.
On 011
883
0702.
18 minutes after 1 o'clock, and we're talking about school dropouts or dropping out of school. It can be secondary, like high school, or tertiary, and what that experience was like for you. It might not have been you directly, it might have been your child. And did they look back and ask and wish that they had completed? Did they ever go back, or did it work out in their favor? I want to hear from all of you on that after News 24 published an article that argued that less than half of the people doing grade 10 in 2023 actually made it to doing their matric. And that is a staggering number. Just looking at how many hundreds of thousands did not participate. And I have to also say that not all stories are going to be negative and sad sob stories. Sometimes it worked in the favor of that child, and it's usually very exceptional cases. So I'm going to also remind you all of those who are referenced when it comes to them being successful as dropouts. So Richard Branson dropped out of school at 16, but the reason was he had severe dyslexia. So he started a student magazine, then Virgin Records, and now we know where he is, right, in life. Very, very successful. At one point, Oprah Winfrey dropped out of school due to poverty and instability. Fortunately, at some point, she did return to her education, and obviously, we know of Oprah Winfrey. Jay-Z, big businessman and rapper, dropped out because of a difficult home environment, and now has built a record label and so many other massive partnerships. Ellen DeGeneres dropped out of college, didn't drop out of high school, was waitressing while doing comedy at night, and of course she was able to build an empire, and I think she's chilling somewhere in Europe at the moment. Mark Zuckerberg is another one who left Harvard to go and build Facebook and now a Meta, and there's so many others that we can speak of, and I'm sure many of you know people in your neighborhoods that have dropped out and things worked out, but they don't always work out, and maybe you are the parent of one of these grade 10s that did not make it. Share with us what happened. 011 8830702, the WhatsApp line 0727021702. Isaac in Orange Farm. Hi, Isaac.
Hi, Rele. Ke a utlwa voice ya gago e tshwana le ya Julius Malema today.
I needed that love, Shem. I needed that love.
Yes. Really, nna ke motho o mongwe a dropping out just because my siblings were supposed to carry on with the school, and then my father, we were 9 at home. My father didn't manage to take a burden of all of us, you understand? And then now, to us, one was supposed to sacrifice himself for them, for the others to carry on with the education, you understand?
Were you the firstborn?
No, I wasn't the firstborn. I was the middle of these 9. Yes, number 6. You understand?
Yes. So how did things turn out for you? You dropped out because you had to take care of your siblings and work. How did that work out for you?
It did work out, not so bad, but now I'm working as a driver. I end up getting some promotion, and then it's not so. It didn't work out so bad. It didn't work out so bad because now I'm working, and then they are working good, nice jobs, and then they are well educated, and then it's happening sometimes. So you have to sacrifice yourself for the others.
So are you saying that your siblings who went to school are actually currently more successful than you are in life?
Yes. They are successful.
And do they support you?
Yeah, I don't need a lot of support to them, and I need it's just they did appreciate it that you did sacrifice yourself for us to go to school, and then well done, but it wasn't a bad thing. It was a good thing. Yes.
Would you ever go back to complete your education for yourself?
Now I'm 53. I maybe I can go, but I just feel I'm too old for that.
How,
because
Isaac?
my children now are at the last born. She's doing grade 12 now, and then the others are at the tertiary.
So
Who will
Isaac,
support them?
doesn't mean you have to do it full time, but people like Brasipo Hot Sticks, went back to school. The only reason I asked is if it was something that will, something that you do for yourself.
Now I can do it just to up my education, but not to say I'm in need of education. No. Now I can see that I can survive without education. I'm good on doing a lot of hand job, like plumbing, electrical, and all that. Yes.
Isaac Relebogile, thank you so much for calling in and sharing your story. I really think it is probably the story of many in this country and globally where one has to now go and support. And I am going to bring up a very difficult conversation one of these days. And I don't know if we're ready to have it. But the difficult conversation is going to be around parents that had no business having children being unable to financially support them. We'll take the time properly to really get into that conversation. Is it Nitro or Nitro in Kempton Park?
Nitro. It's
Nitro, how's it?
I'm okay.
Sharp.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yes, go ahead.
No, for me, I don't know. There's a whole lot of dynamics here. Looking at this thing of dropping out, sometimes I'm starting to believe that some of these kids are no longer as motivated as us back in the day when we had to finish and make sure that we have this qualification. We go hustle, we go get work, whatever. But nowadays we're seeing people asking for work at the robots with qualifications. How are we going to motivate these kids?
Yes. And
how are we going to motivate with like, if we're saying this person did this and now they're sitting at the robot with the qualification, do you think they'll be as motivated not to drop out? Or it's like we're stuck in a predicament type of vibe,
I think when you look at what we were taught, and I don't know how old you are. Are you a millennial?
I'm 42.
Okay, so you and I are both millennials, ne? We grew up in the era where it was just apartheid about to end, and we were told that if you go to school and do the right things, you're going to be able to provide for your family. That's what we were told. Yes. But that system no longer exists. The system of go to school and then go to tertiary, it does not guarantee a job. The fact that we have medical doctors that are sitting unemployed, the fact that we have teachers that are sitting unemployed, that system no longer works. So to respond to what you're saying is, how would it motivate young people to stay in school? Ne?
It's difficult to convince them today.
Yes, definitely. I think, firstly, there needs to be some kind of foundation to create a certain way of thinking. And I think we need to relook what that future is going to look like for people surviving and living and earning. Because now you have kids that become pro golfers when they're teenagers. You have kids, and granted, these are people who maybe have access to resources, but that formula no longer works. And I'm in no way saying that education is ever wasted, but education for you to be in a system that is built for you to go and get a job of 9 to 5. I don't know if that system still works. And thank you so much for your call. Were we not speaking just last week about the fact that our schooling system does not accommodate everybody? It really doesn't. So if your child is not good at academics or is dealing with any kind of special needs, it does not accommodate. The arts are not seen as valuable, as serious. Yeah, it's real. Here are some of your voice notes on 072 702 and 702.
Yeah, that's a very nice topic. When we speak of half the number of people that were in grade 10, I think that's where the statistics about whether or not we push through enough people through to matric tend to fumble. Because grade 10 is that year where some people go off to tech and vocational studies. And we're not accounting for those people. It's almost like because they passed from grade 9 into grade 10, we summarily expect to see them all in grade 12. Whereas the stats should be people who start, let's say, grade 11. Because at that point, it's clear who's left and who hasn't left. Only then, I think, the numbers can be relied upon. I'm just thinking about the argument that I think it was Action SA that tried to say the number was 53%.
Afternoon, Relebogile and 702 listeners. Look, I think the biggest issue we have is our tertiary education system is out of date. I mean, I dropped out for a number of reasons. Firstly, I was at loggerheads with lecturers and the reasons why they are teaching us old skills. And then the second one was really funding. It was difficult to get that in order. But the more pressing matter was the fact that the people who were teaching us all of this were not into the education. So it worked out for me. I got a great job in the same field. I work in IT. I work alongside people with degrees. And I wouldn't necessarily think that they have an advantage over me.
Thank you so much for all of those voice notes. We'll wrap it up as soon as we come back from Eyewitness News. It's 1:30. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Relebogile. Good afternoon. Outgoing NPA head Shamila Batoy will not resume her testimony at the inquiry into Johannesburg prosecution's boss advocate Andrew Chauke. Last month, Batoy abandoned her testimony, requesting an opportunity to be given legal advice. Batoy is the main complainant. She accused Chauke of making politically motivated prosecutorial decisions. City of Tshwane officials have closed ranks amid a public spat with the Correctional Services Department over unpaid electricity bills. The city and the department have been engaged in a heated exchange on social media since last week after an attempt to switch the lights off at Kgosi Mampuru and Baviaanspoort correctional facilities. Tshwane says the facilities' municipal accounts were in arrears when City Mayor Nasiphi Moya joined municipal officials to disconnect the electricity. And the Gauteng Transport Department is set to conduct another scholar transport inspection, this time in Ekurhuleni. Transport MEC Gidiboni Dialitlabela will lead the operation in Katlehong today, along with the National Traffic Police. This comes after a scholar transport vehicle collided with a truck in Vanderbijl Park last week in an accident that claimed the lives of 14 learners. Those are the headlines. This Eyewitness News and more at 2 o'clock or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Well, at this stage, some good news in Midrand. Traffic is now free-flowing on the N1 northbound between Allendale and New Road. Nothing to worry about through there. Otherwise, in Germiston, traffic remains sluggish on the N17 in both directions. This is between Osborne Road and Rondebold. There's also traffic lights not working in Bryanston at Winnie Mandela Drive and Grosvenor. Traffic lights out of order in Kyalami at Kyalami Boulevard in the R55. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072 702 1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Clement Maniatella.
Weekday mornings,
9 to 12.
9 to 12.
Why then, when you went to the Koshimampuru, you didn't switch off? Because what preceded your visit there was the emails, was the calls, was all that communication. So why didn't you switch off?
Let me tell you the configuration of the department. The premises is owned by Public Works, and Prison Services uses the facility that is owned by Public Works, but they've got the responsibility to pay electricity, water and rates. And in this instance, Public Works didn't play its part, and we realized that perhaps let's give them an opportunity to discuss that internally so that when we come back, they have already settled the matter. But they owe us.
Eugene Modise, who is the deputy mayor of Tshwane.
Clements Manyatela.
9 to 12 on 702.
The stage is set, the questions are ready, and it's time for you to shine in the 2026 edition of the Brain of 702, the ultimate trivia showdown. So whether you're the quiz master in your friend group, a walking encyclopedia, or someone who thrives on a challenge, this is your chance to prove your mental might and claim the title of the Brain of 702. Go head to head with Sharp Minds to become the Brain of the Day and get 1,500 Rand for each round you win. Be the last contestant standing at the end of the week and be crowned Brain of the Week on Friday, taking home an extra 10,000 Rand. As a weekly winner, you'll compete in the grand finale for ultimate bragging rights and the Brain of 702 title, along with a dazzling 30,000 Rand courtesy of 702. To enter, go to the 702 section on primemediaplus.com. If selected, you'll face a qualifier, and if you impress us, you'll step into the spotlight and play live on the radio. The Brain of 702 kicks off on Monday, the 2nd of February, on Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa and the Afternoon Drive Show with John Perlman. Don't miss the quiz where great minds meet. T's and C's apply.
At Checkers, 2026 is better with over 1,500 deals. Like Lancewood Double Cream Yogurt 700 grams or 1 kg tub, any two for 79 Rand, save 31 Rand. Coca-Cola Original Taste Less Sugar Soft Drink 2 litre, any two for 45 Rand, save 11 Rand. And Kellogg's Cornflakes 1 kg for 74.99, save 10 Rand. Valid until Sunday at Checkers, Checkers Hyper, or shop on 6060.
Spend your afternoon
With Relebogile Mabotja
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
25 minutes to 2 o'clock, we're wrapping up our conversation that we have been having around the children who went in to do grade 10 in 2023, over 1,100,000 of them in grade 10, and now half of them showed up for matric. So what happened to all those kids that dropped out? What happened to the young people that didn't make it? And some of you, of course, have been sharing your stories with us. Is it something you regret? Is it something you would have done differently? Or do you kind of feel like, well, I can also be a Casper Nyovest. I can also be a Richard Branson. 011 8830702 in the WhatsApp line, 072 702 702. Gary in Blue Hill. Hi.
Hi there. Good afternoon to you. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, and you?
Okay, thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Right. Well, I was talking about high school dropouts. Well, I officially got expelled in Standard 8, so I don't even have a Standard 8 certificate. So
What did you do, if I may ask?
Everything that was bad.
I feel like it involved fire somehow. Did you set something alight?
No, I was just a really bad student.
Yes.
So that's what happened. So I've only got Standard 8, so that was it. So just, it does, and my life's been pretty good. No problems at all.
So what did you end up doing with your life? So you got expelled, and then what did you do?
Okay, straight away, I went into the army. I signed on short service because I had nothing else to do. And that was 3 years, and at that stage, we spent a lot of time on the border, and so that made me a lot of money as well. I came back, I bought a vehicle, and I started taking people around city tours of Johannesburg, Pretoria, gold mines, things like that, and from it grew and grew till a huge big company with 44 vehicles.
Oh, wow. Wow,
Yep.
Gary. Listen, I'm so glad that you shared that story, because hopefully does give hope to the young people
Absolutely,
who feel that it is
absolutely.
all over. And I know for many,
not at all.
you know, the matric certificate becomes the basic, because not everybody wants to be a business owner. Not everybody wants that stress of chasing after clients to pay invoices. Some people actually want to clock in, go somewhere, and know that their salary is guaranteed at the end of the month. Some of your messages, I think the biggest injustice in South African school system doesn't know what to do with highly creative kids. That's why we have many success stories in the media and creative industries. We need affordable schools, technical schools, and entrepreneurship schools that kids can move to from grade 8. Completely agree with you there. Hi, back in 1993, no transport, no money. Today, I'm 49. I lost my employment in 2021. Today, I cannot get employed as I do not have a grade 12. And I'm a woman and the wrong ethnic group. What a disaster. NPL does not help in any way, is what they say. Another one says, dropouts are often the most successful people in the world. Sometimes it's part of God's plan. Look, I don't know if often the most successful people in the world is accurate, because I feel like you can drive into any township in South Africa right now and find a dropout that is drinking, chilling, doing nothing, more than you can go to the JSC and find a dropout that's like there talking about their billion-rand estate. So I don't know if that's accurate. Our last voice note on 072 702 1702.
Hi guys, it's Bruce. I'm calling you from Pretoria. I dropped out of university very early on, maybe the first year. And I was really able to make a success out of my career. I got recognized in different things, Forbes and et cetera, But you know what I would say is that I really believe I'm one of the few people who have dropped out and really made something great of themselves. And I just think that kids should try stay in school. You know, I think it's not many people who make it. So we should encourage our kids to stay in school. We should, create opportunities that keep kids in school for as long as possible, because you really need the qualification. It's very few spaces where you can excel without a degree, a diploma, or, a formal qualification.
Thank you so much for all of your messages, your calls, and your voice notes. Sometimes a young person drops out of school because they do not have a choice. As the previous caller had said, that he had to go and support his siblings, but times have changed. What I'm going to leave you all with is to say, as parents, we cannot put the responsibility of educating our children on the government. They will fail us. They can't even fill a few potholes, like they will fail us. So the responsibility is on us. Of course, if you have resources, it makes life so much easier because you can pay for private tutors and all of those other things. But I'm going to beg and plead. Use your network of people you know to help your kids, especially if they are struggling or they have learning challenges. Don't give up on them. And the education system at some point will need to change to accommodate all types of kids, whether they're creative or academic or whatever way that they are gifted. But it is our duty as parents to make sure our kids are educated.
702 Movies.
Time for movies and what to stream at 19 minutes to 2 o'clock. And today we do something a little bit different. We have an author in the building, but not quite the author you think. He goes by the name of Lelo Mzata, who is an award-winning journalist, a broadcaster, and has recently released his book, Action, a celebration of African cinema, but also happens to be a former colleague. How are you doing? Welcome.
Good afternoon. How are you,
Oh my gosh, I could be better. You can hear my voice, but I'm doing good. And I'm so happy to see you because I'm like, you used to have dreads all the way down
to my
below.
waist, yeah.
Yes, to your waist. And you used to be with Prime Media before. And then we bumped into each other again at the SABC, where now we were across the road from each other. And I'm so excited that you launched this book because I've always known you to love the arts in all forms. In case people don't know, you are doing sport at Radio 2000.
Yes, in the morning on the breakfast show, the
Yes,
BBS.
yes.
Big breakfast show. DJ Sbu Nati, and there's also Nala and Rory Sang.
So they don't get to experience the fun side of you like we are about to. So why did you decide to write a book, Action, a celebration of African cinema?
First and foremost, good afternoon. You know, the last time I was interviewed here at Prime Media, it was in 2008 when I was looking for a job here.
That is so wild.
But lucky enough, I did get the gig. Katie Katapodis had the sense to hire me.
Yes.
So, yes. Man, I mean, the thing about, you know, the film industry all over the world, it's got its names. Like there's Hollywood, there's Nollywood, there's Bollywood and stuff. But in South Africa, what do we have?
Didn't they try to call it Mzansi Wood at some point?
They tried Jossywood, they tried all kinds of things. But the thing for me, it's not just even about the name, it's about the industry itself and what it has given to the world. And with this book, Action, a celebration of South African cinema, is that I have done reviews on 40 films, South African films. I can give you the list. I mean, it's
before you give the list, where does one even begin to start to choose? Because over the past few decades, so you knew you wanted to write this book and really delve into a love that people maybe don't know you for. But how do you even start to decide which are the films? Because there've been so many.
There's been so many. I've been asked on some, how long did it take you to write this book?
Oh, yes, that too.
It took me 30 years. It really did.
Can I guess one of the films?
Guess.
The Gods Must Be Crazy.
The Gods Must Be Crazy. Page 159. It's in there.
You guys must also guess on 072 702 on 702. So I'm assuming there are some of the obvious, like anything that maybe got Oscar love, like Tsotsi.
Tsotsi definitely, it's in there. There's no way I could leave it out. I mean, it got us an Oscar, for goodness sake. Yeah.
Yes. But how do you choose the others? And did you only choose films you genuinely liked? Or is there a film you put in there that you like, you must watch it, but I think it wasn't a great film?
All of these films that I've actually written about are all films that I've watched. All of them. And I love each and every one of these films. And that's why I was like, okay, I'll put this one in, I'll put this one in. So I didn't write about stuff that I've never watched.
Okay.
Over and over. Because I don't watch a film once. I watch films over and over and over. So if I'm not doing sport, if I'm not cycling, then I'm watching films.
Okay. And when you get to whittling down, how did you decide what you're removing off the list?
Building this list was quite intense. Then I'd be like, okay, I think people will also relate to this one and that one and that one. And I mean, there's a variety of movies in here. I mean, there's even a movie called Trompi. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Trompi. It's about these Afrikaans boys and stuff.
Yes.
There's Wolf Macy as well in here. I've watched Wolf Macy with my eldest daughter, Nella, many a times. And so it's just, that's how I just choose these movies on how I rate them.
In terms of looking at the industry, I mean, there's going to be a march just this week for film and TV jobs. On the one hand, we've got so much more content, but on the other hand, we still have not made that blockbuster moment like the Leon Schuster era used to be. What is your view on where the industry is at the moment? And let's speak film specifically.
I think the industry, it's on fertile ground right now. Because of social media, there are a lot of people who genuinely do have the talent but don't have the exposure, and it tends to give them the exposure. Yeah, there are those chances here and there as well, but it does give the people who've got the talent exposure. Number one. Number two, there are many platforms now in which films get streamed. You can watch a film on your phone. You don't have to go to the cinema anymore and wait for a film. And when it's off, then it's off. Now I need to go to a cassette shop. And if they don't have the, that VCR tape, then, then you've lost out. Whereas now they're streaming, you can download things. It's the ground is really, really fertile when it comes to film.
Are you one of those individuals that's trying to go back to analog? Because I'm joining the group of going back to analog where you actually have the bodies of work with you. Like right now, if somebody gives you a CD, there's nowhere to play it. Like my laptop won't, my whatever won't. But now I'm like, I want to go back to having a VHS collection and an LP collection. are you trying to return to analog, or you fully in the digital world?
I've never stopped being on analog. I even have got vinyls. And my laptop, I've got that thing that you can actually attach on the side where you can actually stick the CD in. So I've never gone off analog. I mean, one of the vehicles that I've had, like it had a cassette player. And this was in the era of CDs. So I've never gone off analog.
And the cassette player needs to go with the big pen, guys, because you
Yes.
need to be able to
rewind.
Okay, so talk to us about some of the films that you've chosen. We've mentioned Tsotsi getting Oscar love, absolutely iconic film. We've touched on The Gods Must Be Crazy. My heart is still sore that actor got like 200 rand or something silly out of that film.
Out of that film.
Yes.
And maybe that Coca-Cola bottle as well. They say that maybe you can keep it.
Oh my God.
You know?
What are the other films that we can look forward to reading about in your book?
Okay, now let me tell you, I mean, there is A Way of Life. It's a film about football. There was the Men's Day Cup, and it was in the 80s, and it's just Orlando Stadium. That was the theme there. It was quite interesting. Then there was Amandla, A Revolution in 4-Part Harmony. I'm pretty sure that you'll actually enjoy that one because it's about struggle songs in South Africa and how they come about, what they mean to the people, and the emotions that they bring up. And then there is Brenda Fassie, I'm Not a Bad Girl. It's a documentary about Brenda Fassie. I mean, there's even a shot where like she's in a bathtub there, she's naked. Like there's all kinds of things in that movie. But I mean, it tells you about quite a lot about, the type of person she is. And then there's Catch a Fire. There's also Cry Freedom. There's a lot of movies here that are about struggle as well. There's Cry Freedom, Cry the Beloved Country. There's also District 9, which is South Africa's sci-fi movie.
Yes.
Pretty lovely one. Drum. About the drum story. But I don't think that TEDx actually did that character.
Can I just
justice.
reenact? One thing I'll never forget about in Drum,
Yeah.
when Tay digs. So you know how we say "Coco"
Yes.
when you're knocking.
Yeah.
In his scene, he went "Coco, Coco." That's how he did that. I will never forget that scene. But I'm so excited about yesterday. I mean, that
Yeah, it's in
amazing
there as
performance by Leleti Jerusalema. Guys, I hope this makes you all want to go back and rewatch some of these films. Jock of the Bushveld.
Yes.
I'll never forget that film since I was a kid. How many Leon Schuster films did you include?
I think I put in about 3 because they were going to take up the entire catalog.
So he's the repeat offender
Yeah.
in the list.
Yeah, no, I mean, Leon Schuster, that we played that cassette at home till it really, habare into cassette DJ, man.
Yes.
Yes. When
You wore it
You
down.
wore it down. So like we used to like play it that much. One movie that has made me cry though is
Yes.
Lollipop.
Oh my gosh.
Lollipop.
I remember that film.
Do you remember the scene though, where after the young fellow, the Caucasian one, went to America because he got injured, and then his
Yes.
friend, they shipped him over to America as well to go see his friend at the hospital. And then he got lost. And then he got
Yes.
hungry. Then he stole a burger.
Yes.
And when he stole a burger, the burger guy chased him. When the
Yes.
burger guy chased him, he caught him, and the boy started crying. When he started crying, and this man was barking at him, and he just said, "Ke lapile."
Oh.
And I was like, oh my.
And the poor American was like, "What you on about?"
No, that guy was actually not American.
Oh, yes.
He was a Zulu man in America flipping burgers.
Oh my, okay, you are taking us too far back. Where can we get a copy of the book? And folks, I think you'll all be so excited to go back and just take a walk through some of our amazing films. And I'm sure there are many more that didn't make the list. Where can we get a copy?
You can get a copy from me.
Yes.
Because this thing is self-published from start to finish. And then I'm distributing it myself. It's just one of those experiments that I'm doing, but I'm actually doing pretty well because people are buying the book.
What is the email address they can reach you out?
They can reach me at lelo.mzaka@gmail.com. It's that simple.
lelo.mzaka@gmail.com. Now a published author and a former colleague, but doing so well. And I'm so excited for this book for you. If you're wondering, thinking, you guys didn't mention this film, listen, get the book.
Get the book.
And then
They're
you'll
in there.
know what is in there. And then if something's missing, you can also say, Lelo, I'm upset you didn't include, then he will launch the next one.
I'll launch definitely the next one. And yeah, I ship anywhere in the country.
Lelo Mzaka on 702 Afternoons.
Thank you.
In the last 24 hours, this is what's happened in your world.
At least 10 people have been killed in a massive storm which has hit parts of the USA. The storm has prompted warnings to stay off the roads, mass flight cancellations and power outages. The poweroutage.com tracking site showed more than 840,000 customers without electricity as of last night. Authorities from Texas to North Carolina as well as New York have urged residents to stay at home. At least 20 states and the U.S. capital Washington have declared states of emergency.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent.
Tip your way to glory in the Hollywood Bets Punters Challenge, the free-to-play horse racing game with daily cash giveaways and massive jackpot prizes. Pick all the winners on the race card and you could win 100,000 Rand. Bet 50 Rand or more on your selections using the Bet Slip feature and you could walk away with 1 million Rand. Visit punterschallenge.hollywoodbets.net today and tip your way to the top. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008.
702.
Travel.
7 minutes to 2 o'clock, time for our travel feature with Igor Mutelska, who's a national tourist guide and travel journalist. And you can also head over to eagerjourneys.com to catch up on her work. We are chatting today about luxscaping and 2026 travel trends for South Africans. Iga, happy Monday. How are you doing?
Happy Monday. It's been a minute.
It has.
It's the first time we're chatting this year.
Oh my gosh, Happy New Year.
Yes, and you.
My goodness, we have to make up for lost time. But let's jump straight into it. What is luxscaping?
So it's a smart spending tactic for budget-conscious travelers, and it's a way to create your trip with at least one luxurious experience, or perhaps a few high-end experiences sprinkled throughout your holiday. And research from Marriott Bonvoy recently that came out is showing us that 69% of South Africans plan to take around about 6 holidays or short breaks this year. And that's either a split between domestic travel or perhaps regional travel to our neighboring countries like Namibia, Eswatini, Lesotho, and Mozambique, or even long-haul international trips, perhaps to the Indian Ocean Islands or Southeast Asia, maybe even Europe. And so luxscaping is the sort of idea of the selective splurge. So we're designing our holidays better by using this strategy. And in actual fact, the research showed that 64% of South Africans already use the strategy, and that increases to 74% of Gen Z travelers who are hopping on the trend. So they might book a budget Airbnb or a guest house for the vast majority of their holiday, but then they might book a 5-star hotel or maybe a full-day spa retreat for the first or the last night of their trip. Perhaps they splurge out on a fine dining experience or maybe a heli flip over Cape Town or a private VIP tour during their stay.
I absolutely love that because it also gives you, it doesn't mean that you have to go all 5-star or all, terrible. It kind of reminds me of backpacking in Monaco because you can only imagine how expensive Monaco is. But also it's not quite the worst because it's Monaco. And then choosing to have one really, really expensive experience. I've seen a few South Africans where they spend the first 4-5 nights at like a 3-star place and then they give themselves that luxury experience for a night or two. So what are some of the other trends then we are seeing in this luxscaping space?
Yes, so we're seeing that it's all psychological, as you mentioned, and that many people are bookending their trip by doing the last night, splurging or staying somewhere fancy. And if you look at it, it shows that in actual fact, when you have that premium experience at the end of your trip, it stays ingrained in your memory and it kind of gives you that sense of the entire trip feeling or having that sort of like premium vibe. And also, it ensures that you feel rested and restored afterwards. You don't feel like you need a holiday after your holiday. So even if you're eating supermarket samis, in Monaco the rest of the time, at least you're tricking your brain into thinking, that was a really good trip.
I absolutely love that. And I have to ask, Iga, for your personal experience, what are the things that you choose to splurge on? I feel like experience is one of them.
Definitely experiences. I will say, though, that the older I'm getting, hostels are out for me. I need my peace and quiet.
Ma'am.
I need to get enough sleep. Because I am out and about. I am walking from dusk until dawn. I'm exploring. I'm doing everything. So sleep for me now is non-negotiable. I will cut down on food even because I'm far too busy out and exploring. I even forget to eat. But experience is 100%. And in fact, City Press reported that Gen Z is leading the charge when it comes to these so-called passion pursuits, where they're also planning their trips around a hobby. So whether it's a music festival or perhaps they're running a marathon or partaking in a race, maybe they're learning photography and they want to do a, flowers meets the ocean photography workshop during flower season in the Cape. And so again, they're valuing these experiences, very often good food, wine pairing and adventure. And trends are showing that they're doing this more so than wanting to travel with family. So that's an interesting new trend that's taking place.
Okay, and what is the other thing that we're seeing in terms of making our rand go further in 2026?
So 66% of Gen Zers are now also using AI, along with South Africa's new Sianda AI planner to build their itineraries. Of course, this comes with a disclaimer that you always need to double check and do your research on the back of the info you've sourced. But Standard Bank also shows that Gen Z and millennials are rather booking everything separately and doing the research themselves rather than buying a package deal, which we're seeing more so with older generations. Another great way to save, though, I will say, is midweek magic. Traveling midweek saves you up to 40%, and then they use those savings to book one hero activity. Something else that is really common, especially in Mauritius or the Indian Ocean Islands and Southeast Asia, is a day pass. So they don't pay, a large sum for a night in a fancy hotel, but instead they pay, on average 1,000 or 1,500 rands for a 5-star day pass. And that includes,
I saw those
yes,
spas in China where you can spend like $30 and you get access to everything.
Exactly. The infinity pool, the private beach, the bar, the restaurant, all of that. And then they're, saving on the overnight bill. So that's really smart. And two other things I'll mention is that TravelSite has shown us that to get bang for your buck, book domestic flights at least 24 days in advance and international flights around 54 days in advance to get the best deals.
So many things one can do. Get that Michelin star meal or get to try out that once-in-a-lifetime experience if you're really clever with how you book your trip. IgaJourneys.com is where you can find Iga Mutilska. And in the next hour of the show, parenting and parents, what to do if you're trying to reconnect with your estranged parents. And the Naked Scientist joins us. Get your science-related questions in. It's 2:00.
This is EWN.
Good afternoon, I'm Mikey Malapo. We begin in the East Rand, where voting is currently underway to elect a new Speaker of the Ekurhuleni City Council. This follows the resignation of the EFF's Ntabiseng Chibenga, who has been redeployed to the Gauteng legislature. Chibenga stepped down as both Speaker and Councillor following a fallout with some EFF members in the council. 3 candidates are contesting the position, with the outcome expected to be announced later this afternoon. Alpha Ramushana has more.
The EFF's provincial chairperson and former Ekurhuleni Finance MMC Nkululeko Dunga is vying for the council speaker position. The DA has nominated its chief whip in the city, Lucky Dinake, while the ANC has fielded Dora Mlambo for the highly contested role. Councillors are currently voting for one of the 3 candidates. The outcome is expected later this afternoon. EWN understands that Mayor Dr. Kagaza is also planning to restructure his mayoral committee, which comprises the ANC, EFF and AIC. Kagaza, who is an ANC councillor, has been unhappy with the EFF and wants them out of the coalition government. Alpha Ramshwana, Eyewitness News.
We move to the capital, where the Madlanga Commission has heard how Police Minister Senzo Mchunu confronted a station commander for not arresting a politician from the Umkhonto weSizwe Party. Acting KwaZulu-Natal Deputy Police Commissioner Anthony Gopal has been testifying at the commission. Today, Gopal has told the commission about his interaction with Mchunu during a by-election in the Gwadukuza local municipality in Durban. Tabiso Goba has more.
At the heart of the story is Vishnu Dushi Govender, a former ANC ward councillor who defected to the Umkhonto weSizwe Party last year. Govender's resignation from the ANC prompted a by-election in Gwadukuza's Ward 28. Acting KwaZulu-Natal Deputy Police Commissioner Anthony Gopal says senior ANC officials came to Gwadukuza to campaign in the by-election. One of them was Senzo Mchunu. Gopal says while Mchunu was in the area, he visited the local police station.
He then indicated to the station commander, Lieutenant Colonel Naika, that while he was on his campaign trail, he was taken to some people and who complained extensively about the MK party candidate, Mr. Dushi Govender.
Gopal says when he was informed that the minister was at the station, he drove there to meet him. Gopal says he told Mchunu there were no pending cases against Govender. Tabiso Goba, Eyewitness News.
Meanwhile, in the Nkabinde inquiry, outgoing NPA head Shamila Batoy will not resume her testimony at the inquiry into Johannesburg prosecution's boss, Advocate Andrew Chauke. Last month, Batoy abandoned her testimony, requesting an opportunity to be given legal advice. Batoy is the main complainant. She accused Chauke of making politically motivated prosecutorial decisions. This is linked to the prosecution of former KwaZulu-Natal Hawks boss Johan Berta and his Kato Manor unit. Khomotsa Modise has more.
When Advocate Shamila Batoyi abandoned her testimony in December, she'd been admonished and warned by the inquiry's panel for her conduct. During a heated cross-examination by Advocate Andrew Chauke's lawyer, Advocate Tembeka Ngugai-Tobi, Batoyi decided not to return before the inquiry without being given legal advice. This morning, the evidence leaders have told the inquiry that Batoyi's request for a senior counsel and a junior for legal advice was rejected by the Solicitor General and by the Justice Minister Mamuloko Kubai. The minister suggested that she be advised by the NPA's lawyers who are part of the inquiry. Today, one of the evidence leaders, Advocate Tambas Kosana, addressed the inquiry.
Our position is that all the other questions are dependent on this one. In other words, they cannot be addressed meaningfully without or before this one of her obtaining legal advice is determined.
The inquiry has heard that Batoyi refuses to return to the witness stand without legal advice. Khomotso Modise, Eyewitness News, Pretoria.
City of Tshwane officials have closed ranks amid a public spat with the Correctional Services Department over unpaid electricity bills. The city and the department have been engaged in a heated exchange on social media since last week after an attempt to switch the lights off at Jose Mampuru and Bavian Sport correctional facilities. Tshwane says the facilities' municipal accounts were in arrears when City Mayor Nasi Pimoya joined municipal officials to disconnect the electricity. Although the electricity was ultimately not disconnected, the Correctional Services Department has hit out at the city's intentions, claiming it flies in the face of intergovernmental relations. The department also slammed the city for what it labelled as inaccurate billing information and poor administrative processes. City spokesperson Lindela Mashego says the city stands by its position.
Our records confirm that these accounts remain significantly outstanding following a prolonged period of non-payment, and this was the basis for the site visits. During these engagements, officials did not dispute the city's billing records. Instead, they indicated that they were not fully aware of the outstanding amounts and committed to engaging the Department of Public Works to resolve the matter.
And the Gauteng Transport Department is set to conduct another scholar transport inspection, this time in Ekurhuleni. Transport MEC Kidiboni Dialetlabela will lead the operation in Katlehong today, along with the National Traffic Police. This comes after a scholar transport vehicle collided with a truck in Vanderbijl Park last week in an accident that claimed the lives of 14 learners. Jabli Lembata reports.
Transport authorities have revealed that the driver of the scholar transport vehicle involved in the fatal crash last week had no valid permit to transport children. Since the start of the academic year, the provincial government has committed to double down on its efforts to ensure that scholar transports are compliant and have all the necessary operating licenses before going out on the road. Parents are also urged to vet the drivers and the vehicles that are transporting their children. The Provincial Transport Department has taken its campaign to tighten the rules and regulations for transporting scholars to Ekurhuleni today. Jabulile Mbatha, Eyewitness News, Katlehong.
Gold's trading at $5,092.62 an ounce. The rand's at 16.02 to the dollar, at 21.91 to the pound, at exactly 19 to the euro. Brent crude oil's at $65.96 a barrel.
Germiston heading towards Boksburg. There's slow-moving traffic on the N17 eastbound. That's between Osborne and Rondebold. Traffic lights also not working in Midrand at Olifantsfontein Road and Old Pretoria Road. Also faulty traffic lights in Bryanston at Winnie Mandela Drive and Grosvenor.
A look at your weather. A partly cloudy day across Gauteng with afternoon thunder showers expected today. Temperatures are peaking at highs between 30 and 32 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. Voting is currently underway to elect a new speaker of the Ekurhuleni City Council.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Relebogile Mabotja
Live, streaming countrywide
on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
Nine minutes after 2 o'clock, the second and final hour of 7:02 afternoons with me, Relebogile Mabotja, and we are going to be jumping into our parenting and parents feature. We'll be talking about reconnecting with your parents after a long break in communication. Maybe they're estranged, maybe you chose to cut them off and go no contact. I'd love to hear from you. We'll be joined by Palesa Khadebe, who is a clinical psychologist, for that conversation. And then we wrap up with Dr. Chris, our naked scientist. And you can get your questions in early. So get in touch with us, 011 883 0702. SMS us 31702. Tweet at Relebogile M, at Radio 702, using the hashtag 702 afternoons, and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702.
Parenting and Parents
on 702.
Parenting and parent time. There have been a couple of times we've had conversations around what can be very complicated relationship between adult children and their parents. Maybe you're a Gen Zer with a millennial parent. Maybe you're a millennial with a boomer parent. And for some reason, somewhere along the lines, communication was cut or you became estranged. Or it might be a parent that you never really had in your life to begin with, but you are looking to connect and reconnect. And the reason I say that this relationship can be very complicated is because dynamics, of course, start to change the older you get. But I'm so glad we're joined in this discussion by Nomsa Palesa Khadebe, founder and CEO of Neuropsych Services, as well as a clinical psychologist. We take your calls on 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 702 and 702. Welcome to the show, Nomsa. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Relebogile. Thank you so much for the opportunity to kind of chat about a very, sometimes very hurtful conversation. Thank you so much.
Nomsa, I want to start off by finding out, from your experience and maybe your studies and your colleagues, what are some of the common reasons that adult children and their parents become estranged?
I think before we kind of get into that particular point, I want us to kind of understand in essence what it is a breakdown of the sort is caused by. And that is just in essence a relationship breakdown, right? So when we talk about relationship breakdown, it's more often than not one or more people within the dynamic feeling dissatisfied by how it is the relationship is progressing. And the main reason for that is usually due to unfulfilled expectations. And these are often related to how it is we're communicating with each other, or at times just understanding what the roles or the duties of each member within that dynamic looks like. So when we're functioning from assumptions and a lack of clarity therefore being experienced, that is where this quote-unquote relationship breakdown often happens, and we see it mostly in, the generational gaps of family dynamics that you described at the top of this topic.
I want to do my absolute best to avoid the blame game in this conversation. Yes. However, I want to try and sort of understand, how do you usually approach such situations where on the one hand, there's a parent, on the other hand, there's a child, but both are adults. And, sometimes that blanket statement of, but you are the parent, so you are responsible, comes into play. What are your thoughts and learnings around that sort of blanket statement?
It always starts with not necessarily overlooking the fact that there is a generational gap. And hence going back to the conversation around making the assumptions and then thinking that we can function from a place of assumptive learning or assumptive experiences. So being very, very, I call it the elephant in the room. So you've got to call out the elephant in the room and say, listen, we are in different spaces. We are experiencing and have been brought up in different ways. And so how do we now adjust and recondition or renegotiate how and in what ways we can now make this relationship that we're building a little bit different. So what we often experience, you were kind of describing boomers versus millennials versus, the younger generation. If we are trying to create change and making blanket statements around what our parents or those before have done without really considering how the shifts are making the relational and the relationability between the parent and the child more resonant, then we are putting ourselves in a position of repeating a lot of traumatic experiences that just weren't being able to be asked around or even, kind of properly explored or considered. So I always say to the people who kind of come to me, my patients, my clients, the couples and the families, is call it out and then try and figure out to the best of your ability what works for us and why does it work for us. The renegotiation in this instance is always what makes it the easiest to move past from.
Yes. When you take a look at these estranged adult children and their parent relationships, what would you say the gap or what is being missed? Is it simply lack of exposure from an older generation? I hear often from my mom, my aunts, and them where we talk about stuff that happened and they'd be like, we didn't know. This is what we knew. Or would you say it is a lack of accountability? Is it, a generation of parents who the idea of saying, my child, I'm sorry, is you're a failure? What would you say it is? Because I'm sure it's a laundry list of things, but I'm confident there are common themes that show up.
Yes. Well, short answer, all of the above. You've kind of nicely summed it up quite well. But yes, I think very often we find that it's a lack of emotional consideration of how it is our lenses as parent, as child are developing, especially in this new technological world that we're finding ourselves in. So where we are having lenses that are skewed by what was fantastical and nostalgic and just made things feel a lot easier as a child, as you grow up and now become the parent to another type of a child, we can fantasize and romanticize things without necessarily delving deep into them. So the common points or the points of consideration when it comes to reconciliation, the first and the biggest one I always say is you've got to understand that things are going to have to be different.
So can I ask a question, Nomsa? Sorry, for when we get to the reconnecting. I just thought about the fact that is there also, because I feel like sometimes when two individuals, irrespective of their relationship, have become estranged, right? One might see it as a misunderstanding and the other might see it as like, you don't see me, you don't hear me. Is there also a lack of understanding from either party or both as to why they're even there to begin with.
Exactly. 100%. And this goes back to what I'd mentioned at the top around there being an unfulfilled expectation about how it is we're communicating. So that very point that you speak of right now is if we aren't able to, in the conversation, in the build up to the reconnection, understand that we need to remain open on twofold. Recognizing that you have to be aware of the fact that your opinion will also be supported and be inclusive of the other individual's opinion too. That how we move forward, if we move forward, are we ready to move forward? That actually, are we aligned on that, number one? But
sorry, Nomsa, we're just struggling a little bit with your network. Can you move around a little bit? Okay, I think we've got you. Yes, you can pick up from where you were speaking. Yes.
Perfect. Apologies about that. So what I was just basically talking is exactly that, what you're describing right now. Remain open. An emotional perspective around what it is, our intention.
All
and
right,
the reason
Nomsa,
why.
you know what I'm going to do, just because the line is really not great and I don't want us to miss on this important information. I'm passing you back onto our producer. We're going to take a break. And please get your questions through on 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 702 702. Reconnecting with your parents that have been estranged from you as an adult child. And maybe you are that parent who wants to reconnect with their adult child or children. 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702.
Africa Milani.
Weekday mornings,
4 to 6.
The minister, Andrew Motshekga, announcing a board of inquiry to find out why. And our reports over this past weekend that, in fact, there would have been instructions from the commander-in-chief as early as November last year, warning about the inclusion of Iran, that seemingly the National Defense Force ignored. How is that possible?
The military cannot even debate whether or not to perform a particular exercise once a decision has been taken by the president. That's one principle that we should adhere to as a democratic state.
Dr. Kingsley Makubela.
Africa Milani.
4 to 6 on 702.
Get your brain in the game, because the brain of 702 is back with your chance to flex your general knowledge smarts. There's 3,000 Rand up for grabs every day, and Brain of the Week wins 10,000 Rand plus a spot in the finals to compete for the grand prize of 30,000 Rand cash. Enter on primemediaplus.com now. Then catch 702 Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa and 702 Drive with John Perlman for your chance to be the brain of 702. TCs and more on primemediaplus.com.
Watch dog, why is there a horse in your driveway?
You right, Savvy. Why drive a Mustang when you can ride one?
What the missus say?
Well, she had a bit of a long face, but now she's stable.
If you need a backup plan, We Buy Cars can sort you out.
Nah, Savvy, this thing is eco-chic.
Stop horsing around, cowboy. Rather get one of these from We Buy Cars.
What's the horsepower on that thing?
More than one, Doff. More than one.
Don't be Doff, be savvy. We Buy Cars, geared for adventure, geared for you.
For over 30 years, Bid Air Cargo has been keeping South Africa's supply chain moving, giving our economy the dedicated cargo capacity it needs. Whether it's really, really urgent, oversized, or hazardous, when a shipment has to fly, we make it happen. Linking all major airports with reliable freighter services, our promise delivers. Bid Air Cargo. Every kilo counts.
Parenting and Parents
on 702.
20 minutes after 2 o'clock, we continue with our Parenting and Parents feature, chatting to Nomsa Palesa-Khadebe, founder and CEO of NeoPsych Services, and also is a clinical psychologist. How to really navigate reconnecting with your estranged parents as an adult child, and maybe it's the other way around. 011 883 0702 in the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702. So, Nomsa, you were sharing around the part of one or both parties not even knowing why they're estranged, not even understanding, because sometimes it will seem like, well, we just had a silly argument, she's or he's overreacting, whereas the other one that might have been the final straw of a recurring pattern that, you know, can you delve into that part of even trying to get to the fact of how did we even get here?
Absolutely. I apologize for that. I'm hoping you can hear me a little bit more clearly now.
Much better.
Perfect. I'm glad. So yes, just to kind of sum up, 100% what you were saying and how you've kind of framed it. It is sometimes a very misunderstood reasoning as to how it is we got here, and the confusion is very often the reason why we're most frustrated, because we both have our different opinions and our perspectives. And so when we're thinking about that, and then going back to the idea of effective communication and the emotional considerations thereof, it's about always remaining open when you are going to engage in this conversation with a family member or whoever it might be. And that speaks to, number one, being very aware of the fact that you're not the only one who will have an opinion. And so in branching and broaching the conversation is, I have my interpretation, you have your interpretation. Are we both at a place where we're willing to hear each other? And the hearing each other comes and is really led by, number one, understanding why we're doing this. So understanding your why. Why am I wanting to mend the relationship? How does that affect me? In turn, how does it affect the other people who are being part of this dynamic? Because at the end of the day, we need to always remember that in this process of there hadn't been someone left who left or felt as though they were not being held, contained, or supported, there has been a detachment. And that traumatic experience can breed so many things related to the wounds that are now being reopened, to the hurt that is being re-experienced. And so it's always about understanding, am I in a position to be able to hear effectively and not just defend myself, so that the confusion of the breakup isn't re-established or reignited, but rather there is a blanket statement of, we were both in effect not on the same page. So what is the way forward? So it's a collaboration above all else.
What is the question that a person should ask themselves if they are deciding to reconnect? Because I can only imagine how many adult children have difficult relationships with their parents, and I don't want to just throw in terms willy-nilly because everybody's saying narcissistic and toxic, right? But
yes.
when I was faced with difficult challenges with my parents, I had to ask myself, do you want a relationship with this person, yes or no? And where the answer was yes, it meant, for me personally, what was I willing to do for that relationship? And I had to adopt certain tips and tricks like, okay, this parent is not good at this. Stop making them fail by asking them for that thing. This parent is great at this. Go to them for that. Make them shine. But I also know that there are other dynamics. Maybe help us understand, what should you be asking yourself? Because maybe some parents should not be in your life because it's more harmful.
Absolutely. Yes. So it goes back to the mental, the keeping your mental state of health as being of paramount importance. So I like how you kind of led with it in your own personal experience, but recognizing that sometimes people can't meet you where they're at, where you're at, not because they choose it innately, but just because where they're trying to build or how it is they have developed is a little bit different from you, and that isn't a bad thing. So the first question I always recommend you to ask yourself is, number one, am I okay with things being different? And in this instance, you need to understand that different isn't bad, but different is more so a movement from what it was that had initially created the disagreement, therefore the division, and so renegotiating, reframing what this relationship will look like. Because at the end of the day, we need to keep in mind that where there's distance, where there's time apart, people have evolved, right? And that evolution has taken place in your absence, not in spite of you, but because we can't unfortunately pause time. And so if you're able to respond from that stance of, I'm okay with the difference, with the change, with the evolution that might come into my space, then I'm perhaps able to start a baseline conversation of, where did it all go wrong? So are you okay with the difference is the biggest question I would say you need to ask yourself.
And I think that is such an important point that you are raising. When it comes to leave things in the past or let it go, what should remain on the table and what should not? I mean, I think about my grandmother in her 90s. There are certain things that it's not even, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It was just lebala, and I think for many people, they'll be like, I can't even begin to try and open this up or unpack it with my parents.
So what should we let go and what should we kind of try and negotiate? The letting go, I think, is probably the hardest one because, like you had kind of outlined, that it requires a lot of disconnecting and I think the biggest thing is the compromise element. We can always feel slighted if we have to let go. So I would say let go of the idea that you are the only one who knows how best it can work, right? Again, I go back to the communication, the interpretation, the lack of clarity that can then bring about the unfulfilled desired. So we are both unsure. So let go of your being perfect around that. But in that space, I want you to always hold on to understanding that your sense of security and safety has to remain front and center, even when we are opening ourselves up to this. So if there is physical, if there is innate emotional traumatic responses that this person brings out in you that they're not necessarily willing to move through, past, or meet you halfway on, then perhaps we need to take a step back and try again at a later stage. Again, it's about recognizing that you might not necessarily know all the answers right now, and that renegotiation, that wiggle room for things happening at a later stage or in a different way will always allow for the process of getting to higher spaces or for just airing things out and giving people the opportunity to see that something more needs to be done either on your side or on their side is available. So opportunity for growth is a consistent and a continuous thing, but it shouldn't necessarily be put into limits about a time frame. So the back and forth is perhaps the best way that you can kind of frame it for yourself. Where, why, and am I safe in doing all of these things?
I'd like to read a voice note that's come through that says, Lebo, my eldest son and I, and all his siblings, are now estranged. We were the best of friends until shortly after his mother-in-law moved in with them, fired the helper, and began cooking for him. Shortly after, he chased away all his siblings and stopped talking to us all. He now loves only his wife's family. I'm convinced he has been fed korobela. I want to remain anonymous. Is there, and maybe you can help me with finding the words here, Nomsa. I find sometimes, especially when we're emotionally attached to certain experiences, it feels impossible that there was an alternative explanation for the why.
I think that one is probably the hardest. And when we are in these types of situations, you need to kind of have a self-reflective moment of what are the steps or the contributions that I had made that led to this particular behavioral presentation. And sometimes how it is someone responds to you has got absolutely nothing to do with you. So when you're sitting there and you're thinking, okay, I hadn't slighted this person, I didn't treat them in a particular way that warrants any of what is taking place, we have to then accept the moment of pause. And that is the let go that we were speaking about just a moment ago. Letting go any responsibility that you are at this moment in time the one who has to fix it, but rather respecting the need for the distance in order for them, whoever it might be, to come to whatever that sense of conclusion or awareness is. Now, I'm saddened to kind of speak to, especially in this case, that it could be a lot longer than we anticipate. Hence, I say don't put limitations on that time frame. Continue to keep them in your mind. Continue to keep your heart open to the fact that there are other alternatives of why, how, and when things might come to the forefront. But the biggest and best exercise is, did I do something to slight? Then take responsibility or accountability, or at the same time, let go of accountability or responsibility that is not yours to own. Because we cause ourselves a lot of pain by thinking that we have to be the almighty one to create a change. Sometimes life is just a lesson that is different. Yeah.
Yes, and I really hope, Nomsa, you will avail yourself to come through for a part 2 so we can touch on boundaries, so we can touch on circumstances where maybe your parent, abandoned you and you are trying to find some kind of missing piece in your life. And I think there's so many other layers, but I really, really hope that you will be available to join us again soon in our Parenting and Parents feature. Thank you so much, Nomsa, for your time. Founder and CEO of Neo Psych. It's Neo Psych Services, and of course, a clinical psychologist. It's just after 2:30, time for your latest Eyewitness News headlines. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Relebogile. Good afternoon. Voting is currently underway to elect a new Speaker of the Ekurhuleni City Council. This follows the resignation of the EFF's Ntabiseni Chibenga, who has been redeployed to the Gauteng legislature. Chibenga stepped down as both Speaker and Councillor following a fallout with some EFF members in the council. 3 candidates are contesting the position, with the outcome expected to be announced later this afternoon. We move to the courts in KwaZulu-Natal, where alleged July unrest instigator Bonginkosi Khanyile has told the Durban High Court that the 2021 riots had nothing to do with his call for Jacob Zuma's release from prison. The former Fees Must Fall activist is charged with incitement to commit public violence and the contravention of the Disaster Management Act linked to the unrest. Khanyile has been testifying in the High Court today in a pre-trial hearing where 62 other alleged instigators are appearing. And a federal judge is expected to hear arguments today on whether immigration and customs crackdown operations should be halted in the state of Minnesota in the U.S. The state sued the Homeland Security Department earlier this month, 5 days after Renee Good was shot by an ICE officer. Those are the headlines. This Eyewitness News and more at 3 o'clock or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Well, at this stage in Germiston, traffic sluggish. N17 eastbound between Osborne and Rondebold in Southgate heading towards Eldorado Park. There's also slow-moving traffic. This is on the Golden Highway between Chris Hani Road and the N1. Otherwise, the rest of 702 land looking pretty good. No serious accidents have been reported on our highways. Just look out for those faulty traffic lights in Bryanston at Winnie Mandela Drive and Grosvenor, as well as in Edenville at Morafontein Road and Van Riebeek. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072 702 1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
There's a new way to experience all your favorites. Pulse Africa, the 24/7 fast channel, now live on PrimeMediaPlus.com and the Prime Media Plus app, bringing you the best of Prime Media around the clock. Watch the biggest moments from 702. It's non-stop entertainment and authentic African storytelling, all from Africa's leading media network. Pulse Africa, only on the PrimeMediaPlus.com and Prime Media Plus app.
South Africa's musical theatre classic Marabi returns on the stage of the Market Theatre with an exceptional cast, launching the theatre's 50th anniversary year. This much-loved play with live music is directed by original cast member Arthur Molepo. Set in the tough Doornfontein yards of the 1930s, Marabi follows a family chasing hope in Johannesburg, bound by love, loss, and unforgettable music. Marabi runs from the 29th of January to the 15th of February. Visit markettheatre.co.za for tickets.
Hollywood Bets invites you to take the lead. The sizzling summer competition is giving you a chance to bask in horse racing glory and blaze into red-hot rewards. Bet 50 Rand or more on horse racing online or at your nearest branch, and you could win a share of 1 million Rand in prizes. Enjoy a star-studded lineup of equestrian events this summer and settle up for a season of success. Bet now. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp HELP to 076 675 0710.
Year in, year out, we're fixing tires faster than a Formula One pit crew. My team is on top of things like tire whisperers. If an unforeseen accident were to happen in my workshop, at least I've got My Way business insurance to keep the wheels turning.
Visit myway.co.za or dial 0860 64 64 64 and get a quote today. My Way is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's, C's and standard rates apply. My Way. Live your way.
You keep your brain trained like a well-oiled machine. Now it's time to put your brain in the game, because the brain of 702 is back with your chance to flex your general knowledge smarts.
In which country is the famous statue Christ the Redeemer?
Enter now on PrimeMediaPlus.com. Then catch 702 Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa and 702 Drive with John Perlman. There's 3,000 Rand up for grabs every day. Brain of the Week wins 10,000 Rand weekend and a spot in the finals to compete for the title of the Brain of 702 and an awesome 30,000 Rand cash on 702. TCs and more on primemediaplus.com.
Coming up
on 702 Drive with John Perlman.
702 Drive is coming up from 3 to 6 p.m. with John Perlman. And we will be finding out what's happening on his show. John, how are you doing? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you too, Relebogile. Good afternoon to all of our listeners. I'm well.
All right, what's coming up on your show today?
So the Madlanga Commission is in one of those moments. They had it before in the earlier rounds in 2025 where there are anonymous witnesses. This is witness E. I remember witnesses A, B. I can't remember exactly who was C, but they're invariably people who have been or are in the police who've witnessed certain kinds of abuses. So that's very important. We're going to watch that closely. Tabiso Goba is out there covering things. He's with us after 5 o'clock. The rand's broken through 16 rand to the dollar. The gold price has broken through $5,000 to the ounce. So a lot of key indicators are moving in very positive directions. But what does it actually mean in practice? Because, for example, gold is paid for in dollars. So if you get less rand for those dollars, maybe that gold price thing is still golden, but not as shiny as you might have thought. We'll talk about that with analyst and economist Kevin Lings. He's always excellent at explaining these things. Some lawsuit involving Meta and that company's access to our WhatsApps. More on that at 25 minutes past 3. There are some South Africans involved in the matter. And speaking of South Africans involved in big things in other parts of the world, the Springboks are going to play a game in the United States in September in the city of Baltimore. It's a very surprising venue for it, although the local American football team has a stadium that holds 71,000 people. But we're keen to know who's going to go and why. I mean, I assume they've done the numbers and they think they can fill it. But we'll talk to Michael Goldman, South African, out in San Francisco, who is an expert on sport and business.
All right, 702 Drive with John Perlman, coming up from 3 to 6 p.m.
702.
The Naked Scientist.
Time for The Naked Scientist with Dr. Chris Smith, 011-883-0702, and the WhatsApp line 072-702-1702. Happy Monday, Doctor. How are you doing?
Happy Monday. I'm in recovery, to be honest, Lebo. I'm recovering from a nasty cold. I had this horrible thing. I never get ill, or not in a big way. And last week I felt really not the ticket. So I had some horrible viral thing, upper respiratory tract infection, and it's left me feeling rather catarrhal and sounding a bit not so good, I suppose you could say. I mean, feel all right.
Well, we're in the same club.
A bit rough.
We're in the same
club.
club.
Yeah, well, I thought so. This is why I brought this up. I thought I'd share it and make you think you're not alone in this.
I'm not alone.
The really funny thing is I did this interview last week with a scientist at Yale Medical School called Ellen Foxman. And what caught my eye about the paper she just published in the journal Cell Press Blue is that she's effectively recreated a nose in a dish so she can infect it with the common cold and find the cure to the common cold. And it's really intriguing. She basically takes stem cells and grows them, but if you grow them in such a way that the top of the stem cells is in contact with a layer of air, they basically turn into a layer recapitulating what you see in the nasal tract and the respiratory tract, the same organisation of the mucosal surface there that these viruses would see. And she can infect this as a model of what rhinovirus infection for real looks like, and then trace how the virus seems to cause disease in some people, but not interestingly in others. And she said she's found one or two molecules that do appear to be linked to some of the worst symptoms, that heavy mucus, that kind of thing. She thinks she knows what the trigger is. And so now she's saying we have to go after ways of turning that off, or at least turning it down a bit so people don't end up sounding quite so much like you and me today.
I'm happy to hear that there is some kind of an explanation and support. And we welcome all of the questions on 011-883-0702 and the WhatsApp line 072-702-1702. Zweli from Germiston asks, Dr. Chris, if Gemerito honey can help reverse glaucoma. Gemerito honey. I've never heard of Gemerito
No,
honey.
I've not heard of that particular kind of honey, but I have heard of glaucoma. And glaucoma is a heritable condition, tends to run in families. So if you have a close relative with it, then it's important you keep an eye on your own sight to make sure that you're not developing it, especially as you get older. Glaucoma occurs when the pressure inside the eye goes up. Now, your eye continuously makes fluid, which sits in the front chamber of your eye, it's called aqueous humour, continuously from the bloodstream. And it regulates the pressure. There's almost like a pressure relief valve system in the eye, which keeps the pressure of that fluid right. And if the pressure goes too high, this is transmitted onto the back of the eye and it squeezes the optic nerve. And this has the effect over time of atrophying the optic nerve, and you can go blind. And it's very easy to diagnose because there are simple instruments that are completely painless. They just use a puff of air to deflect the front of the eye, and you can watch the eye deflect with this device a tiny amount in response to the puff of air, and that tells you what the pressure is inside the eye. So it's painless and easy to diagnose, but if you don't diagnose it, it can be devastating. But the way we manage this, there's a number of ways, but the simplest is just with eye drops. And the eye drops work by reducing the rate at which you make that liquid in the front of the eye, the aqueous humour. Or there are other surgical interventions that can be used to provide an alternative route out of the front of the eye for the fluid to keep the pressure down. But those would be downstream of trying the simple measures first, which are just eye drops to help maintain a normal pressure in the eye. I'm not aware that there's anything in any other ingredient, including honey, that would do that, and it's really important not to take any kind of chances with sight. It's such an important sense, and it's one of those things that when it's damaged and gone, it's gone. We can't get it back at the moment. So do not take risks with your sight. If you suspect this may affect you, please do get it checked out. It's very simple, very easy to get a glaucoma test, especially if you have a family history.
All right, another question. Dr. Relebogile, I wanted to find out what itching actually is. What is happening in one's skin when one is itching?
Well, when we itch, you've activated a unique family of nerves whose job it is purely to indicate itch. So all through the body there are itch-sensitive nerve cells, and they plug into the spinal cord alongside nerves that tell exactly where on the body you're getting the itch. So you have a signal that goes into your spinal cord that says, this is where the sensation's coming from, and then another signal when it turns on that says, and it's itchy. Now, if you drill down to what actually is going on in the skin when you're itching in that particular area, usually it is because something has irritated the skin. That's obvious. But what does irritation actually mean? Well, in your skin, you have a family of cells called mast cells. They're big, bulky, chunky cells which are full of granules. And if you look at what's in those granules, range of things, inflammatory chemicals, but one of them is histamine. And when something perturbs the skin, and that could be a chemical perturbation, hence a chemical irritation, or just scratching the skin, bashing the skin, or signals from nerve fibres, and this is going to become important in a minute, it causes the histamine in the cells to be released into the tissue, and histamine free in your tissue causes blood vessels to open up and swell. That's why an itchy bit of skin tends to go red, because there's more blood flow. It expands because more blood means more liquid, and that means more volume, so it gets bigger. It also makes blood vessels leaky, so proteins come out of the blood vessels and go into the tissue, and that makes you swell up even more. And it can also provoke some pain. And so when you've got all those things, it goes onto the histamine, these local itch-sensitive nerve fibres, and it turns them on. And that tells that part of the body, this is itchy. And the reason this happens is that there are certain classes of things that try to get into your body. Mosquitoes trying to infect you with parasites like malaria. Also worms, that the larvae can drill holes in your skin to get into your body. They elicit profound itching because they're warning you, pay attention to this part of the body, something may be trying to invade you. And so it's actually a special reflex we have to defend us, but in some people it can become pathological, and that's often characterized by eczema or acute dermatitis, an inflammatory condition of the skin, where you go into this inexorable, interminable itch-scratch cycle where you scratch the skin, you release some histamine, that makes the itch feel initially a bit better, because when you scratch an itch, it does give you relief because the scratching turns off the itch nerve fibres temporarily, but then that also detonates more histamine release, which makes the itch come back with a vengeance. So the best thing to do is just with itchy eyes, for example, don't rub them. You have to resist the urge to rub and scratch, because scratching makes itching, which makes itching worse.
You literally sound like those people who say, if you see a lion, don't run. It's just something that in the moment it will not happen.
Oh, it's so tempting. If you have hay fever or something like that and your eyes start to prickle, and that you've literally got that moment. If you go near them, if you touch them, if you rub those itchy eyes, you are going to detonate loads of histamine release into your conjunctiva, and then the whole cycle is going to go into horrible feedback loop, and it's just going to go atomic. So do not, if you feel that sensation, it's prickling, just distance yourself from the source. Maybe splash a little bit of clean, make sure it's clean water into your eyes, and do not touch them, do not rub them, because A, you'll burst the pollen grains into your eyes, and B, that makes it worse, and B, you'll burst the mast cells and push even more histamine out, and that makes it even worse, and then you're in big trouble. So try not to scratch an itch, tempting as it is, because it will make it worse.
You are making me itchy talking about this, so let me quickly move on to another question. We go to Andrew in Hammanskraal. Hi, Andrew, go ahead.
Hello, Relebogile, Dr. Chris.
Yes.
I just want to find out, of the three types of stars, the blue, the white, and the yellow stars, which ones are the hottest and which ones are the brightest? Thank you. I listen.
Oh, hi, Andrew. No problem. Stars come in many different shapes and sizes, but as a general rule of thumb, the bigger they are, the hotter they are, because they've got more fuel, more gravity, and therefore they're squeezing down on their core harder, and that's burning hotter and faster. And they tend to therefore be bluer, because the hotter light is towards the bluer end of the spectrum. So big stars, ferocious rate of burn, blue at the end of the blue spectrum. Stars that are cooler are more towards the red end of the spectrum. And there are some stars that don't get started at all. They're so-called brown dwarfs, and these are a bit bigger than Jupiter, and they're a star that didn't quite get started. So they had the initial chance of becoming a star, but they didn't ignite because they didn't get quite big enough to start the fusion process. And so they sort of are warm and they glow a bit, but not anything like a nice hot burning fusing star. So that's the answer. It's stars that are smaller, longer lived at the red end of the spectrum, bigger, bluer, whiter at the blue end of the spectrum, but don't live very long.
Oh, thank you so much for that question. Here is another one which reads as follows. I apparently have a rugby-shaped eye. Therefore, I cannot do surgery to stop wearing glasses. Is it true? Is it possible? If so, is there any other way to go about helping me stay away from glasses? I'm assuming they mean rugby ball-shaped eye.
This is a condition called astigmatism. And the eyeball should be spherical or as close to that as possible, because the cornea on the front of the eye does the lion's share of the focusing of light that comes into the eye, and then the lens behind the cornea tweaks things a bit to sharpen it up, and it focuses the light onto the retina, which is this flat, nice curved sheet of light-sensitive tissue at the back of the eye. Now, if the eyeball ends up being squashed into a rugby ball shape, all of those optics at the front, which are trying to focus the light onto the retina, well, if you imagine squidging a ball so it becomes rugby ball shape, you move the back of the eyeball backwards a bit. Therefore, the light that's being focused is being focused on to the area in front of the retina. So the focal point is before the retina, and then the light begins to spread out again and only hits the retina after it's spread out a bit again. And that's why you see blurry images. Now, it's not true that if you have a bit of astigmatism, you can't have laser vision correction. If you have some minor things, some minor aberrations, you can definitely have laser correction. And what they do is to ablate a certain amount of the corneal tissue on the front of the eye, because if I've just been saying, if you think about it, the cornea does most of the focusing. If it's focusing light in front of the retina, it's as though the focusing system is too strong for an eyeball of that shape. So you want to weaken the focusing effect of the cornea a bit. So if you shave some tissue off the cornea, which they do very carefully with special laser procedures, and then they fold the flap of tissue on the outside back in to protect everything, so hopefully nothing goes wrong. This should weaken the focusing effect of the cornea and shift the focal point back onto the retina again. But some people have very severe astigmatism where they need incredibly thick lenses to correct for their visual problem. And if you were to take enough material off of the cornea to fix that, there's a really high likelihood you may damage the integrity of the cornea, and then you could have a whole heap of trouble because you can get problems like herniation of the eye through the front of the eye. So you don't want to do that.
Thank you so much for that question. Let us go back to the lines. Barry in the Vaal. Hi.
Hi, Relebogile.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm good. Listen, Dr. Chris, it seems like we're speaking about eyes today. I've got pigmented glaucoma, and I went to the specialist now. I'm already using some bronzer and diatrof, and he says the what do you call it, the synovius, the nerves in both my eyes are basically 95% damaged already. Is there anything that he says there's no possibility of ever fixing that, and the possibility of obviously going blind is also there. And I've been there for about 3 years now, and I'm just using the eye drops now. Is there anything, I've went for laser already. He says the other option is getting stents. Is there anything else that what options do I have, or is there no option? They're just basically waiting for me to go blind.
Sure.
I'm so sorry to hear about your predicament. Did you say you have glaucoma?
He said yes, pigmented glaucoma.
Yeah, pigmented glaucoma.
I'm not an pigmented glaucoma. Okay, I mean, I'm not an ophthalmologist, so I'm doing this from the perspective of someone who is a medical person who doesn't specialise in the subject. So I can only talk very, very generally, and I'm not a replacement for your own ophthalmologist. The bottom line is that whenever the pressures in the eye are not normal, then this is applying pressure to the optic nerve. And it's a bit like if you imagine the optic nerve coming off the back of the eyeball, and the eyeball is squeezing against it because the pressure is too high, the nerves in there slowly get pinched off. And this leads to optic atrophy and progressive visual loss. And with aggressive control of the pressures, this can help to slow down the loss of acuity or completely stop losing it. But the problem with the optic nerve is it's part of your central nervous system. The retina is effectively an extension of the brain. And the one thing we do know for sure is when you injure the brain, there is a very limited ability for the brain to repair or regenerate itself. The periphery of the nervous system, if I cut a nerve in my hand, for example, with a saw by accident, and I reattach the nerve endings, it's very likely that nerve will regrow and I'll get all the sensation back. It doesn't work like that with the central nervous system. And unfortunately, when we damage the retina, we do not get back the nerve connections that would have carried the visual image from the back of the eye to the relay station in the brain that then sends the visual pictures onto the back of your brain. So really the most important thing is to make sure that it doesn't get any worse. And careful monitoring is the number one thing, making sure the diagnosis is absolutely correct and that there's nothing else going on and that there are no other reversible factors that can be managed to try to, or which could be contributing to the problem. And there are sometimes several eye diseases going on at the same time. And so managing all of them aggressively and effectively and making sure no stone is left unturned has to be the number one priority here, to make sure that you have, or you safeguard the vision you have.
Thank you so much, Barry, for that question, and all the best on your journey with your eyesight. Anita in Springs, go ahead.
Good day, Dr. Chris. I'm wanting to know if a cholesterol medication can cause dementia with prolonged use.
Ooh.
This was highlighted as one of the worries that people have about the use of statins, which are cholesterol-lowering drugs, which are very popular and very effective. One of the commonest is, for example, simvastatin. Another one is atorvastatin. They all end in the word statin, and their mechanism despite the fact the molecules are all slightly different, their mechanism is the same. They inactivate the product of a gene that makes cholesterol in the body. And if you inactivate that enzyme, you make much less cholesterol, and therefore the level of cholesterol in the blood falls, and this should translate into a lower risk of heart disease, because the level of cholesterol, particularly a low-density lipoprotein, LDL form of cholesterol, has a strong association with a higher risk of heart disease, and also therefore strokes and damage to other parts of the body as well. So lots of people now take these drugs in order to reduce their cholesterol, to reduce their heart disease risk. And we've shown that they make a dramatic difference to people's risk of heart attack and the progression of arterial disease. At the same time, people are now beginning to look at the side effects of these agents and asking, well, could there be linked to any things like aches and pains? That was a very common one. And also, is there a risk of dementia? Because the body uses cholesterol, and if you drew cholesterol on a piece of paper, the molecule it's a series of linked rings, like the Olympic rings in some respects, but they are all in one plane. In other words, they're all flat. The molecule is very hard to twist around. It's a very flat, like a pane of glass. And so our nerve cells insert that into their membranes, and because it is rigid like that, it makes the nerve cells more rigid. And this helps to stabilize membranes of nerve cells. So one concern is, well, if we rob the ability of the brain to put this stuff into membranes, could this affect brain function? At the moment, people are looking into this to see whether there are short-term effects. Does this translate into, for instance, poorer memory, or a loss of some cognitive function acutely? And as you've asked, in the longer term, does this translate into a higher risk of things like dementia? At the moment, I don't think we've got really clear evidence that there is a heightened risk, because the bottom line here is that the threat to your health posed by heart disease is far greater than the risk of any tiny elevation in risk of developing dementia. So the argument goes that whilst you might be reducing your risk of dementia by not taking these drugs, you've just massively increased your chance of having a heart attack, so you probably won't live long enough to get dementia anyway. That's their argument. It's a little bit of a cynical kind of see I told you so type argument, but at the moment people are watching this, they're looking, and I don't think we've got really clear evidence that there is a signal there that it does or doesn't do these things, but it's certainly on people's radars to look for this. But in the near term, there's great concern that if people don't use these agents, that especially if they have very high cholesterol, they could be at high risk of a heart attack, and that could kill them, and therefore they wouldn't have to worry about dementia. Therefore, it's a reasonable compromise.
Anita, thank you so much for your question. Dr. Chris Smith, back together next week.
Need a seat? Try 7 or 5. It's your call. Want a sunroof? Make it a panoramic. Gotta have power? How does award-winning 138 kilowatt sound? The Changan CS75 Pro is big enough for the kids, smart enough for your playlist, and stylish enough for your Friday night too. Why settle when you can have it all without compromise? The Changan CS75 Pro. Drive tomorrow's SUV today. Visit changanmotors.co.za for more.
Changan, driven to evolve.
To walk the talk is to turn words into meaningful actions. And it's what we at 702 are committed to doing every day. We are also committed to following the rules set out by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission's Code of Conduct. To give you balanced programming, fair comments, and accurate news. But if we stumble along the way and you feel we are not living up to the code, let us know on comment@702.co.za. And if after that you're still not happy, you can direct your complaint in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission. Email bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more, visit bccsa.co.za.
The Money Show.
Weekday evenings at 6.
On the next Money Show, we're joined by Amanda Kromhout, the CEO and founder of Truth, a leading customer centricity and loyalty consultancy. She'll share her journey with you on how I make my money. In our business book feature, we speak to Matthew Parks, COSATU's parliamentary leader, about the latest book he's been reading and why it grabbed his attention. And, of course, we bring you expert analysis of the day's biggest business stories.
The Money Show
on 702.